Welcome to Desiderius Ripple podcast. In this season, we are diving into learnings from the Leadership for Green Transition, a training where we explore sustainability beyond environmental lens and as something deeply connected to how we lead, communicate, make decisions, and sustain youth organizations over time. Today, we are happy to join by Gevorg, a youth worker from the Czech Republic. Gevorg is a youth worker, artist, and tutor originally from Armenia and currently based in the Czech Republic. He mainly focuses on creativity, leadership, and social change. Through Erasmus Plus projects, tutoring, and collaboration with NGOs, he supports young people in developing confidence, critical thinking, and a sense of responsibility toward their own and other communities. As an artist, he uses visual storytelling to reflect on identity, displacement, sustainability, and resilience. He believes that creativity is not just an aesthetic and visual tool, but a way to show a powerful message and inspire empathy in people. His journey through different stages in life has helped him to explore his creative style more deeply and share the knowledge in new environments. These new environments helped him refine his voice and grow beyond needing validation from others, which made him a lot more confident in the work that he does currently. Gevorg, thank you so much for joining me for this chat. I'm really looking forward to sharing this space with you. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi.
Okay, so let's dive into the reflections and probably your takeaways from the training. It's been almost a month, so I'm quite curious to see probably what are the thoughts and ideas that have stayed with you over these few weeks since we gathered all together. My first question would be to you. You have taken part in several Erasmus Plus trainings already. What keeps you bringing back to these learning spaces?
So for me, it's mostly about the informal education, the opportunity to learn and explore like new cultures and new learning techniques. And every time that I go to an Erasmus Plus training, it inspires me to continue going to this type of projects, because every time I learn something new and I meet a lot of new people. I think like the people are like one of the most important parts for me because when I meet people, I get inspired and there's like new connections. So it's really like something really inspiring for me, and I want to keep doing this type of projects.
Right. And did you feel unexpected or different from other trainings when you were part of our group?
I think it was a bit different, but overall it had like the structure that I'm used to, like for trainings, because it was very informative. But also since it was informal education, it was a really, really productive and nice way to learn about the new information about the leadership skills. Yeah.
I mean, I have to add, even though you didn't mention that, I think it was also a very lovely venue that we had. I mean, the host city, which I think also was a great space and environment for all of us to gather. Thank you, Gevorg. I wanted to ask you particularly in regards to our training. I mentioned earlier sort of about your background, that you're interested, and also that it's a thread in your work, the topics of leadership and sustainability. But I wanted to ask you particularly in regards to our training, when you joined Leadership for Green Transition, what were you curious about and what were your hopes or expectations and motivation about the training?
So for me, it was mostly about the leadership skills because I feel like sometimes I lack like the right skills to be a good leader, and I wanted to focus more on that because I think as a youth worker, it's really important to be able to lead the youth and help them, and you need the right tools for that. And when I saw this project, I felt like this was the perfect opportunity to join and to learn more so that I can share and pass on my knowledge that I gained and like the tools that I gained from this training.
And I think it's also what you mentioned about leadership in youth work, sort of one of the ideas that we try to bring with this training about the sustainability as a concept that, it's about continuity and also long-term impact, and also about you being a leader and creating this long-term impact. So my question would be here for you, what does sustainable leadership mean to you right now, also in the context of the work that you're doing currently and also the aspirations that you have in the field of youth work?
So, sustainable leadership for me, it means leading in a way that supports like both people and the planet without like kind of exhausting each of the points. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think it was during the training where I got to know that you were an artist. And I think it was quite um, accidental when we were dividing groups into different, when we were dividing participants into different groups to work on the outputs. And then you mentioned that, you're an artist who also works with comics, if I'm not mistaken. So I really wanted to use this lens to also ask you about your takeaways and insights from the learnings that we have. As an artist, how do you see the connection between creativity and leadership?
Um, for me, as an artist, I feel like creativity and leadership, they're both connected, and they're both about like making space for ideas, emotions, and people, because creativity, it helps leaders to imagine different like alternatives, to kind of like question the normal and respond like instead of controlling like some sort of outcomes. So I think it's really important for a leader to be creative in that sense, because when you're creative, you can guide people in a more how can I say, in a more like alternative way rather than being more direct, if that makes sense.
It totally does. It totally does. Thank you, Gevorg. And what do you think that art can influence sustainability or the way people think about change?
Yeah, for sure. I think that art and sustainability, they're like, as I said, in some way connected. And since art speaks to people like more emotionally, it's not it doesn't speak only like in a way that like when you spread a message, it's like by text or something, but like with art, people understand understand it by their emotions, like how they have an impression of it. And I think sustainability sometimes also like feels kind of abstract, just like art. And art can make things like more personal and relatable. And I feel like when people are connected to an issue like in an emotional level, then they're more likely to care and act about it. So I think like art, it's a powerful mean to create a connection. Since like if we imagine an example when we talk about like sustainability, like when people hear about it only, for example, on the news, etc., like they would just it could like just cross their mind and like pass. But if there is, for example, some art piece or something visual connected to it, people are more likely to connect to it in a more like emotional level, and it would relate to them like more deeply.
Thank you. This is beautiful. And I really like how you drew the parallel between sustainability and art often being perceived and like actually appearing to be quite abstract. And certainly when something might be abstract to you as a concept. And as you said, also there is a distance often that exists. You hear about sustainability on news from big organization, and then it probably creates this sort of gap for you thinking, but okay, but what is about my personal journey and what is my place in this discourse and also in this issue. And I think it also, your answer created a good transition to another question that I wanted to ask you. Where do you see sustainability as a personal issue, not just organizational? I think you mentioned a little bit, for example, about emotions, which certainly one of the areas that we also a little bit touched and explored during the training, communication and particularly internal communication, sort of how we relate to ourselves and how we understand ourselves. But I'm also curious to hear your perspective on this.
So where I see sustainability as a personal issue, where do I see it as a personal issue is I see sustainability in, for example, how I manage my energy, relationships, my life, and how I choose like not to get burned out, about like working more ethically, about making like personal sustainability choices. I think it's about creating a life that can be maintained, and it's not just like some sort of system that just like looks good on paper. I think it's it shouldn't be just organizational. I think everyone should connect to an issue on a personal level, and when doing so, it will make a bigger impact.
Thank you. I totally agree with you. And again, I think it was such a beautiful connection that you brought also as art, with art being a medium for us to connect this, personal and oftentimes institutional, organizational levels of sustainability that we often talk about. I wanted to also ask you again, sort of circling back a little bit to the training, because there were different ways that we try to explore sustainability. And with some of our previous guests, we talked about, I mean, not frustration, but certainly there were a lot of expectation from some participants that we're going to talk about sustainability through environmental lens, because I mean, this is usually how it's talked about, but we try to sort of bring a more holistic perspective on sustainability. And as you mentioned, to make it more personal, and to make youth workers relate to it through their personal journeys as youth workers, but also through their organizations. I wanted to ask you in this regard, was there a moment or a session that during the training that stayed with you, or made you think about certain areas of sustainability that probably didn't come up to you before that?
I think it was mostly like when we learned about different leadership styles. Like that idea was really like interesting for me, and I got to learn about it more. So like I kind of took, I would say like it mostly like stayed with me after the project. That like there's not just like black and white about leadership styles. That there's like more to it, and when you get to learn about it, you can really like kind of find your own way of being a leader, and continue developing in that way. So for me it was, I would say like mostly like this part of the learning that we did, and I think that it will really like stay with me, and I will be using this in my youth work.
Beautiful. And is there one idea, probably practice, or probably even a methodology, because you also work with non-formal education, that you would like to carry after the training that you learned or probably saw others doing or implementing or sharing during the training?
I think one idea that I could say is that leadership, it doesn't have to be really like strictly like dominant or loud. I feel like it can also be quiet. Like it can be based on listening, on care. And I feel like it could make a more deeper and like a more sustainable impact like over time. As I said, like with different approaches, with leadership styles, like for example the quiet leadership, like it's, in my opinion, like it would be more personal.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. I do love this idea that you mentioned, that, leadership doesn't have to be loud all the time. I think certainly it does create more space for people to take on a leadership roles when they see different ways to actually exercise their agency around it. So yeah, thank you so much for highlighting this. I think one final question that I would like to ask you, I mean, we're still in the early part of the year, so it's more of a general question about your personal journey as a youth worker. You're quite active in the space and taking part in different projects, but also, doing a lot of work on a local level with NGOs. What are your aspirations and hopes for your youth work journey in 2026?
I think my aspirations would be to like of course continue doing what I do and connect in a more deeper level, because currently I am participating in a lot of trainings, but so far I still haven't really had the opportunity to facilitate some sort of workshop, or to be part of a teaching, or of a like a, how can I say, like a more genuine leader, if that makes sense. But like I was mostly part of the technicalities, like for trainings and for choosing participants, etc. But I really want to focus more about like the practice, and I want to do more of that to like have more use to work with. and to share all the things that I learned and to kind of challenge myself and see how the knowledge that I got, like for example from this project, how can I use it like as a leader. So I think I would really want to focus on that and just get more experience so that I can be a better youth worker.
Well, and I hope it happens for you this year. Certainly, I think it's quite exciting, particularly reflecting on my journey to turning and to transitioning, and sometimes doing things in parallel, admin work, but also particularly facilitating these spaces is quite an enriching experience. And like you coming into our space and being able to see you taking part in our training, I think you have such a gracious presence about you that during the training, I think I mentioned to you that I would love to see you more and more in the position of facilitator and actually someone who creates and enables learning spaces for others. So I'm really looking forward for you to take on this role. Gevorg, thank you so much for being part of this conversation and for sharing openly, and also for sharing on different levels of your professional engagements as a youth worker and as an artist. I really enjoyed the insights that you shared and that you brought into this conversation. So thank you so much for this. And for our listeners, thank you for listening. Stay with us as we continue the series of Desiderius Ripple, where we explore how learning spaces turn into lasting change.